guys, welcome back to the Friday Vlog, where we discuss activity that goes on here with the BuzzWeaver channel. That includes things like current events, headlines that are in the news, social media, pop culture, technology, and items of interest that come up during the week that allow us to have a little bit of a dialogue. If this is your first time here to the channel, I'd like to welcome you guys here and ask that you click on that watermark down there in the bottom right hand corner to subscribe, and or the red subscribe button below this video, as your guys' participation here on the channel is greatly appreciated. In channel news this week, apparently I didn't get any notifications that you guys had commented in last week's vlog. So I would encourage you guys to leave a comment below the video in this week's vlog to see if the notifications are working for the vlog presentations. It could have been just a bug, but nonetheless, if you guys would take a moment and of course leave a like as well as a comment below this video, we'll take a look at it and see if I get those notifications this time. And of course, you can just say happy Friday and or comment on the segments that we will be covering in this Friday's vlog. It still seems kind of strange that we're in a pandemic, and of course I can't mention the particular illness of this pandemic still on YouTube because we will get demonetized. But we have some very interesting news in certain states, and as you guys know, there are certain groups of people out there still trying to push this pandemic-minded sort of lockdown. Now, I'm not suggesting that people should just arbitrarily go out there and not be courteous and considerate of others, but I am interested in what is currently developing as we do get closer to the election. So I want to read straight from this article as we go into the commentary. So, a federal judge on Monday ruled that some of Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf's restrictions implemented aimed the ongoing pandemic, almost said the word, were unconstitutional, making a win for businesses struggling to stay afloat, aimed the forced shutdown. Now remember, a lot of businesses have been struggling, and here in the state of Georgia, back in April, we started opening up, and it seems like more things are opening up. In particular, when I'm doing the Friday vlogs, I'm hearing almost more traffic outside, or when I'm doing voiceover work towards the evening, I can also hear a lot more traffic. So it sounds like activity here, at least in our state and or in my community, is still picking up, although of course there's still the pandemic protocol that people are still observing here, even in Georgia. So U.S. District Judge William Sickman IV, who was appointed by President Trump, sided with plaintiffs that included hair salons, drive-in movie theaters, a farmer's market vendor, a horse trainer, and several Republican office holders in their lawsuit against Wolf, a Democrat, and his health secretary. So it looks like businesses and agencies and groups were petitioning and filed this lawsuit to address the lockdown. So the ruling found that Wolf's restrictions that required people to stay at home placed size limits on gatherings and ordered non-life sustaining businesses to shut down were unconstitutional. Now, it's important to remember here too that in no particular state in the United States that I'm aware of do we have any sort of law that mandates or requires that people wear masks. Now, of course, a lot of this is voluntary, has been voluntary for the most part. Yes, you'll hear governors, you'll hear mayors, you'll hear city council members say mandate to wear masks, or even businesses. Now, companies and organizations and businesses, they can implement policies within their businesses and companies that say employees are required to wear masks, and of course if you don't want to wear the mask, then you can just leave the company, which isn't ideal or practical, but it is a choice. So right now in the United States, there is no particular laws that require that we wear a mask, much less that there be a lockdown in and of itself. In other words, a total shutdown, a total removal of business transactions and so forth, as these individuals were saying that they're suffering. If you remember, because we just recently celebrated the event that happened in New York. Another thing we can't say on YouTube without being demonetized. So you guys know that we just had the anniversary of the events that happened in New York, and of course from that it has stemmed other types of discussions and controversies. But even within that particular state, they're still kind of they have very restricted pandemic protocols there as well. But nonetheless, we are in a very strange time. But I will leave a link to this article below this video, and you guys can look into it and check it out. As we had expected, social media has gone into high gear with additional bans across all of the particular platforms. I want to start this off with YouTube. YouTube is temporarily demonetizing the account of popular prank YouTubers Nelk Boys after the men were accused of throwing massive parties at Illinois State University. The pair had previously shared viral videos protesting the pandemic name, but the other name with the 19 in it, protocol. All right. A spokesperson from YouTube told BuzzFeed News, which is this article, the Nelk Boys' recent behavior violates the platform's creator responsibility policy that they believe the men are creating a widespread public health risk. So essentially what we have here is what we have talked about in the past, where platforms can base your activity or can implement their rules of conduct off of what you do on a different platform. Okay, so the Nelk Boys were not making a YouTube video. They weren't even making a video. They were captured on video in this this party environment there at the university. So they weren't even really trying to do a prank or do a troll or make any sort of content for YouTube, but they were demonetized. Now, they're not banned from it. Now, I believe they have over 5 million subscribers. So the real problem is that they're influential, right? They have a very large subscriber viewership. So, of course, this is part of the issue when it comes to platforms in general. But as you can see, YouTube is not very reluctant when it comes to even massive channels like the Nelk Boys. And we also saw Leafy, another YouTube creator who kind of makes very similar content in the vein of talking about other YouTube creators or other political or controversial topics. He has been completely banned off YouTube for his content, and he went over to Twitch and started streaming there, the Twitch platform service, the streaming service that does gaming as well. And apparently he was banned from Twitch. So it is interesting to see as we get closer to the election how the platforms are utilizing their policies and their rules, even for something that would be relatively innocuous like this. But again, because of the pandemic, because certain groups are pushing for more focus on the pandemic, we can see that YouTube has gone after the Nelk Boys for what they perceive to be some encouragement of activity to disregard any sort of protocol or rules of mask wearing and so forth. But these are grown human beings that are on these university campuses. You would think that there would be an equal level of concern about underage drinking and other activity that goes on in the universities. Now, of course, we are in a very unique time, and so the schools, it does seem very appropriate that the schools take measures to prevent large masses of people to get together. But have you guys heard about any large masses that have been going on now for the last several months, like say since May, that have been going on in all these various cities? I never see any attention being placed on those particular young people not wearing masks and engaged in activity that is just plain criminal. But nonetheless, guys, I will leave a link to this particular topic below this video. The lovely, the talented Gina Carano, the former MMA fighter turned model and actress and daughter of Glenn Carano, the former Dallas Cowboys quarterback from 1978 to 1983. I had to throw that factoid in there as my mother is a huge Dallas Cowboy fan. But nonetheless, guys, she has been the center of controversy in a very J.K. Rowling-esque situation. If you guys aren't familiar with J.K. Rowling, of course, she has been battling back and forth on Twitter over transgender issues and having been accused of transphobia. And just recently we learned this week in entertainment news. What'd you know? Entertainment news here on the Buzz Weaver channel this week. Wow. So we have learned from J.K. Rowling that her newest book, which apparently involves a criminal mastermind, a criminal apparently who is a male and dresses as a female, very similar to, I guess, Dressed to a Kill with Michael Caine. If you guys remember that movie from way back, I think it was in the 70s. Very old movie, but nonetheless, I guess kind of very similar to that. And I'm not really sure why this would have to be why the character would have to be this. Anyway, I'm going off topic. Suffice it to say, let's see what's going on with the lovely Gina. So, the Mandalorian star Gina Carano, who you guys are probably more familiar with from her acting in The Mandalorian, has been accused of mocking trans people after putting the words bop, bob, beep in her Twitter bio in lieu of pronouns. The actress who portrays Cara Dune in the Disney Plus Star Wars series was asked by fans whether she would add pronouns to her bio to show solidarity with the trans community. The act of adding pronouns has been common among trans and non-binary people in order to avoid being misgendered, while many cisgender people have also included them to show support for the community. And these are some of the tweets that she has mentioned, but as we've always talked about now, I want to be very sensitive to the LGBTQ community and transgender and so forth. I have no particular issues with my fellow Americans when it comes to diversity, when it comes to divisiveness, when it comes to division and all these talks that people like to throw out there, particularly from a certain group of individuals, from a certain group of politically minded individuals. I see everyone as human beings and my fellow Americans. If you want to end all this division, start recognizing people for being human beings. Start recognizing your fellow Americans as being Americans. I can understand the sense of individuality, the sense of self, the sense of self-determination, and being in a liberty-minded country like the United States where individuality is recognized and celebrated, and I like that very much because that is what makes us different from Europe and other countries in the world, is that we have the liberty and capability and freedom to be an individual and celebrate that individuality. So I don't have anything against the LGBT community, the trans individuals, or individuals with gender changes or want to be identified within gender, because these are my fellow Americans. These are my fellow Americans. May not always agree with their ideologies, their philosophies, and worldviews, but they are my fellow Americans. And let's see what she has said. Apparently, this has been going on for quite some time. Now, these tweets are from earlier this month. So, and these are Gina's tweets. They're mad because I won't put pronouns in my bio to show my support for trans lives. After months of harassing me in every way, I decided to put 3 very controversial words in my bio. This is levels of sarcasm, by the way. So, beep, bop, boop. I'm not against trans lives at all. They need to they need to find less abusive representation. I apologize, guys. It isn't my reading ability. I can't see. I'm very, very, very affected by my vision as I sit so close to the computer. I've pretty much damaged my my near vision. And so we can see here, as we have talked about before, and again, I'm not trying to lump all these individuals into one basket and say, you know, they're all part of the radical left protester, cancel culture type social justice warriors, because these people are my fellow Americans. They're people. They're people who want people to realize that, you know, they think a certain way, they feel a certain way, they behave a certain way, and they just want to be part of the community. They just want to be fellow Americans, and that's kind of the way I see them. Again, I may not always agree with their political views, their ideologies, their philosophies, their worldviews, but they are my fellow Americans. I recognize them. I will not go out of my way or do anything to intentionally harm these groups of individuals. I think it's disgusting to harm anybody, to hurt anyone. I know you guys know that I'm a staunch conservative. I'm a Christian. I have certain values and so forth that I have. Of course, we talk about some of those political views, obviously, here on the channel. But that is not to suggest in any way that I have any hate or disparity towards other groups of individuals. I know I got into a bit of a spat with Roberto Blake, a very famous YouTuber who is an individual who teaches a lot of YouTubers how to create or how to be a good creator, positive creator here on YouTube. So he and I had a bit of a back and forth, a friendly discussion, political discussion the other day. But nonetheless, by no means do I have any hate towards my political opponents, as it were. I want to go on to mention here that she says that I don't think trans people would like all of you trying to force a woman to put something in her bio. So she's kind of using their sort of philosophical approach, right? Because we've always kind of said in a general sense that the left doesn't hold itself to the same standards they expect from everyone else, right? They want their own set of immunity. So that's kind of what she's kind of driving at here. Through harassment and name calling every day. We already know about the name calling and the insults and the badgering and the bullying. So for months, she says, she's been attacked for months now. And she's been called these various names. I apologize for butchering that. Let me just reread it, guys, okay? I don't think trans people would like all of you trying to force a woman to put something in her bio through harassment and name calling every day for months, such as racist, transphobic, bitch, weirdo, I hope you die, I hope you lose your career, you're fat, Y-O-U-R fat, and you're ugly. So obviously baiting and intimidation and just general harassment. This is very common. We see this on social media all the time. But simply because she would not comply to this particular ideology or philosophy as far as like the group think of Hollywood and trying to include these something within their profiles and so forth that they support the transgender community, the LGBTQ or whatever it is. I have no issue with the Hollywood doing this at all. I mean, it's up to them. It's to me, in my opinion, it's their profile. They can put what they want on their profile. It's a profile, right? And we see this across the board, across social media, when it comes to Black Lives Matter and other groups where we've seen levels of support. So I don't know why they would attack her for not doing something as specific as that. Maybe I don't see it. You know, her profile is her profile. She can put what she wants on her profile. I see people put all kinds of stuff on their profile. But I do understand that these individuals may feel marginalized. They may feel alienated. They may feel isolated and shunned by maybe by their peers or groups of people or groups of Americans, or however they feel isolated and alienated. So I can understand where they're coming from. But at the same time, you know, we can't use the same levels of disparity that you may have, or disparity that you feel that people are doing, and then turn it around and then put it on someone else. But if you guys want to look more into it, I will put a link below this video. Comedian, MMA commentator, podcaster, king, and former Fear Factor commentator, a show I never really watched, has said that he would conduct a debate between President Trump and Joe Biden as part of his podcast. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with Joe Rogan, he is the largest podcaster out there in the podcaster sphere. Of course, he can, or you can see his videos on YouTube, but he's gone entirely over to Spotify, which had some people concerned, but in reality, Alphabet, who owns Google and also YouTube, is really not taking much of a loss in that department. So for those who were thinking, oh, this will be a nice hit for YouTube or whatever, it will not affect them at all, or at least not Alphabet anyway, or Google. So nonetheless, he has said that he would conduct a regular 4-hour podcast in a debate style with President Trump and Joe Biden, and the president has accepted. Of course, it's President Trump, and we're in 2020, so we can almost expect the unexpected in this very bizarre year. But nonetheless, it is kind of exciting, and the internet was just exploding everywhere with this potential debate. Of course, we probably know that the Joe Biden campaign is going to play it down. They're not going to be involved in it, which may explain why President Trump decided to jump on this as soon as possible to get ahead of the curve. And of course, President Trump, being the consummate salesman, marketing guy, and very camera friendly when it comes to interactions, he joyfully accepted and said he would do it. Now, I don't know whether or not we'll just see President Trump and Joe Rogan, but, you know, the mainstream media, they're not too hip to social media in general. In particular, of course, as you guys know, we have been, as creators here on YouTube and in general social media, the mainstream media kind of sees us as the amateurs out there that are trying to kind of censor our activity and they kind of give platforms a hard time about us doing these sorts of videos or anything involving the pandemic and these sorts of things, of course, because they're vetted. They have the pedigree. They are the elites. They are the mainstream media of old that has always been around. They are the old guard. They are the messengers of information. They are the influencers. They are the ones who are in charge and perceive themselves as an extension of the Democratic Party specifically. And of course, we've already seen all that and we have talked about it. But I think this is pretty epic. I mean, the idea of having, well, we've seen, for example, Bernie Sanders, we've seen Tulsi Gabbard, we've seen some very big people on Joe's podcast. Now, I say very big people, but Joe can pretty much attract anyone he really wants because he is the #1 podcast in the world with millions upon millions of viewers and subscribers. So this would be incredible. So I know there's a hashtag out there. I can't remember the name of it. I think Make Joe Go or something to that effect. I will put the hashtag that they're trying to get trending below the video so you guys can engage in that if you want to. But nonetheless, I think this is absolutely epic. I would love to see this because Joe, you know, he's just kind of the average kind of guy out there. And I think he would be very fair. You know, he has certain beefs with the president, certain beefs with Biden. Now, he was a very staunch supporter of Bernie Sanders. But it'll be interesting to see, of course, because the mainstream media has been very, very unfriendly towards us here in the creator universe, as well as, for example, Alex Jones, because Oliver Darcy of CNN kind of pat himself on the back for taking the initiative to try to get him booted off of social media. So the mainstream media has been not too kind and or friendly to us here in the social media sphere. But it would be amazing to see Joe Rogan have this. I don't anticipate Joe getting involved in this. They're already terrified of the upcoming debate this month, the 29th of September. There will be the first debate between him and President Trump, and the Democrats could not be any more nervous. And the idea that Biden would sit down for 4 hours, let alone just trying to get through a few minutes of dialogue like when they had the convention, it was going to be very interesting. But nonetheless, guys, it has been a different segments. These have been different this week. I want to just kind of change it up a little bit, get away from a lot of the political wrangling that's been going on. A lot has been going on, of course, this week. But nonetheless, guys, you can find more information about this particular podcast below this video. All right, guys, so that's going to wrap it up for this Friday vlog. I want to thank all of you guys for your continued participation here on the channel and would encourage you to leave those comments down there below the video so I can see if I will get those notifications. If you are following on DTube, BitChute, and even on Parlay, I would ask you guys to give me a follow on those platforms as well, as your participation is greatly appreciated. And appearing right there on the screen, that would be the channel icon for YouTubers to click on to subscribe, along with notifications if you guys want to know when there is content here on the channel. And I'll see you guys right there behind that camera next week.